What you call a young man curious? Drawing on a beat and you know I'm serious. Podcast only need 30 minutes. Experience, but I'm new to this business. About to start a project dependent on acquaintance from new and old business. I thank God for the vision. Every episode, new wisdom. We just talking about real business, like how they making money and how they living. I'm just trying to do something different, cause I'm just a young man curious. I'm just a young man curious. Yeah, I'm just a young man curious. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the I'm Just Curious Project. As always, it's your boy Jorian Wilson. Today I'm joined by one of the smartest guys I've had the privilege of meeting in my life, Christopher Robinson, aka Chris X, aka Pooh Bear, aka whatever you want to put on that. Chris and I met while we were at Harvard. We're actually line brothers.
LB.
For one of the greatest fraternities on this earth. Chris is amazing, went to Harvard, does music, does consulting. And so we're going to hear a little bit more about his life. But before we do that, I'm going to give you a chance, Chris, just to tell the people who you are.
Yeah, no, that was a great intro. So as you said, my name's Chris, from Houston, Texas, currently in Atlanta, Georgia, where I do management consulting, which is basically where companies just hire you to come in and help them with stuff. Like a doctor for businesses, basically. But nonetheless, yeah, been doing that for about 4 years now. It's crazy how time flies. And yeah, now I'm kind of just trying to live life. Take it one step at a time, you know, like.
Emphasis on trying.
It's day by day, day by day.
Nah, dope, man. I appreciate that. And thank you for opening up your studio, CX Studio. So we appreciate that. But before we get too into the other details, I want to hear a little bit more about your upbringing, right? As someone who went to Harvard, not many people get a chance to hear or sit down and speak with those individuals. And so kind of want to hear a bit more about your upbringing and your journey to Harvard.
Yeah, for sure. So as I said, most of my time in my childhood was spent in Houston, Texas. Did a brief stint in Atlanta, but most of the time I was in Texas. So I'll always say I'm from Texas. I would say my life growing up had three primary pillars: football, music, and school. So that literally looked like me running from class to football practice about 2 p.m. to 4 or 5 p.m. Then from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. doing a marching band. And I was like about to faint. But
Hold on, marching band. All right, we're going to put a pin right there. What did you play in the marching band?
I played the clarinet for about a week, and then I realized it wasn't for me. I wasn't about to be on the football field and in the marching band stands.
My man was on his
just doing a little bit too much. But I always kept music as a primary part of my life, and that's kind of like what I've leaned into more over the past few years, now that I have time. Yeah. But yeah, just to get to your question, I set it up that way because Harvard generally likes to go for well-rounded individuals. Like you have some Ivy Leagues where they'll just say, oh, top GPA, top test scores, you're in. I won't say MIT was like that, but MIT was more like that. And you kind of saw those type of people there. But no shade at MIT. Anyway,
whatsoever.
I loved MIT. Not to go on a tangent, I had more fun times at MIT than at Harvard. Almost every weekend, but nonetheless. So I will say, by me being that type of person, it did put me on a pathway where I did have the opportunity to go to an Ivy League school, primarily because I was excelling in my academics most of my life, middle school, high school, and yeah, I guess it started in elementary school with my mom really paving the way and saying, hey, you need to be in these gifted and talented classes, and we're gonna, make sure you're having the resources you need to educate yourself, and just instilling the value of education within me from a very early age. So kept going down that path. When I got to high school, that was kind of like when it all started coming together. I was on the football team, starting running back, varsity.
All right, brag a little bit then.
Well, I'm just saying, like I was getting there. All of the moments were finally, coming to a tipping point. And then I remember one day, it was just a random Tuesday, it felt like, and my football coach, when we came to the football period during the school day, we usually just do lips and stuff like that. But nonetheless, he was like, there's a college in my office for you, Chris. And I was like, for me? Like, I was starting that year, but I hadn't really played yet. I only had my spring films because I was behind a really good running back. But nonetheless, I was like, for me? Okay. So I have any context. I walk in, I see a dude sitting in his chair with a red H on his shirt and a Harvard cap. And I'm just like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And that's really when it became very clear to me, like, oh, this is something that could actually happen for me, because you can set those goals and ambitions, but a lot of times you're just walking out on faith, and then to see it actually start to manifest and appear, that's when it really started to hit me. Then, long story short, after that, went on some recruiting trips. Had to keep the faith for sure, because there were some moments where it was just like radio silence, and I was like, y'all not gonna talk to me no more. I was like, so wait for that. Hey, what's up, text or something. Yeah. But finally they got back with me. So, ended up going on the recruiting trip, and that's when I realized, okay, this is really happening if they're flying me out from Texas all the way up to Massachusetts.
Yeah.
That was kind of my journey.
Anytime people breaking bread, it's the real deal. But a couple of things that I heard from what you were saying, right? So firstly, the diversity in the way you spent your time, right? You weren't just excelling in school, but also excelling on the field. Had your little stint with the band, which I think is awesome, right? It just shows that you're a well-rounded person and can do different things, right? And so that's awesome. And then you talked about kind of the introduction to the opportunity at Harvard. Was Harvard on your radar before that moment, or tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. I mean, growing up, I will say my mom always poured into me and told me, hey, you're going to go to Ivy League one day, or you're going to go to Brown or Princeton. You're so smart. You can do this. And that validation in itself became a self-fulfilling prophecy, because I feel like one of the first steps to achieving anything is putting the intention out there and believing in yourself that you can do it. And by my mom like telling me as a young black boy that no, that place can be for you too, not just like the NFL or NBA. Like, no, you can go on and do great things in whatever lane you want to do it in. So it was always on the radar, but it was always something that seemed a little far-fetched as well, because it's like, oh, Harvard, yeah, I mean, I'm smart, but I'm not that smart. Like that self-doubt,
right,
like we all struggle with that here and there. So that was in the back of my head, but I didn't really let that get in the way of me saying I'm going to try my best.
Yeah.
I'm going to give it my all and see what happens. So I was like saying, I'm going to go hard in school because I wanted to. It was like a fun game to me. Like, my friends like video games, like getting A's or video games for me. Like, because I didn't really play video games like that. But when I get like all A's on my report card, I'm like,
yeah, that dopamine hit.
Yeah, that dopamine hit hard. And when I missed it hit low below the belt. Yeah, so
that's dope, man. That's dope. Thank you for sharing that. Glad that you made it to Harvard. Tell us a little bit about your Harvard experience. Was it what you thought it would be?
So, I will say, I definitely experienced like a culture shock when I got there. Probably like for multiple reasons. Just to give further context, I went to a public high school in a decent part of Texas or Houston, but it wasn't super well funded. We didn't have tons of resources. It was like a melting pot. You had the kids who parents were like engineers and doctors and stuff. Then you had the kids parents who weren't around or maybe unemployed or whatever it may be. My point is, like, it wasn't like this private school or this wealthy area. It was more so like us all just coming together, which I really appreciated for a lot of reasons. But nonetheless, when I got to high school, what was your question again?
This man here.
I don't want to go on a tangent too hard.
No,
so
I was asking you, like, tell us a little bit about your Harvard experience, right? Like,
I got you.
it to be?
I just needed to, get back on track.
Sorry.
So my point is, when I got to high school, I was definitely exposed to a lot of different cultures, a lot of different people, but not really the tippity top of society, you may, or however you may put it. When I got to Harvard, all of that changed because, one, I was no longer just this smart kid who was good at football and good at music. It was more so like everybody was their own version of that.
Yeah.
And seeing where they came from, it was more like they were the top version of that. And I was just something that, not to compare myself, but my point is, like, it wasn't like I was ahead. If anything, I felt behind in all aspects that I just listed. Academically speaking, like, I wasn't used to the rigors of studying like 60 hours a week, 70 hours a week. I wasn't used to football being like another 50 hours a week. Like, you were on the football team, so you knew how that was, like practicing hours and hours, film, waking up 5 a.m. for lifts. Like, it was a lot at once that I really wasn't prepared for. So it definitely felt like a culture shock when I first got there. And just like the social aspect, like me being a black kid from Texas in this new northeastern liberal place where people spoke different and looked at you weird if you said the word y'all. I was like, y'all don't say y'all? It's like, no, we don't say y'all. What does that mean? I was like, it seems like a very natural thing to say, but nonetheless.
I got that. I got clown for the boots.
Oh yeah, I'll clown you for the boots.
And the boots, classic. You gotta have the boots. But,
do you?
But overall, culture shock. I agree 100%. And that part that you talked about, where everybody's at top of it, top of whatever they do, really resonates. I know, like, when I was in high school, you probably feel the same. I was that guy, right? Like, everybody knew me, star athlete, star at whatever I was doing, whether it be music, classroom, whatever it may be. And I get to Harvard, it's like starting from scratch. I'm nobody.
Really? Yeah.
But no, I think that journey, right, that kind of that starting over is one reason I wanted to get away from home, man. I feel like though it was very hard, it was worth it. And so we asked this question at dinner. Destiny actually asked you this. Are you happy you went to Harvard? Would you take a different route?
I wouldn't
go back.
I wouldn't take a different route because no matter how hard it was, it made me who I am today. And even when I talk to people like twice my age, they're like, wow, like, I'm so shocked you're thinking about these things at this age or have these insights or this wisdom. And honestly, like, my biggest struggles have gave me my biggest growths, like, throughout life in general. And I won't lie, Harvard was a big struggle for me, but it leveled me up in so many ways, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. It exposed me where I needed to grow. And because I pushed through, I did grow. And now I can use that growth to live life in a more enlightened way and speak to others and help them find their way as well. And do it from a more informed point of view, not just, oh, I read this in a book. Like, no, I lived through that. I learned what worked for me, what didn't work for me, what was the cap, what wasn't the cap for me personally. And I wouldn't trade that. Like, yes, it was tough, but it's even taught me to value tough experiences, because the tougher the experience thus far, it's like, I know if and when I make it through it, I'm just going to be that much more refined. Like, it's a cliche that pressure makes diamonds, but if you endure that pressure and you endure it with meaning and with intention, I feel like you will come out, like, with your diamonds. But it's all about your perspective and how you choose to look at it.
All right, Diamond. So tell us, what's your favorite Harvard memory? And I'm going to share probably one that wasn't a high point.
I mean, my favorite Harvard memory, honestly, I had like a radio show, and like it wasn't nothing crazy, but to me it was crazy as a 17-year-old kid. I could just walk up into Harvard's radio station, plug in my laptop with my curated hip hop playlist, and DJ on the radio for a couple hours per week. And it was actually going out all over the world, and to the local stations in Boston, people could hear it in their car, hear me talking like, hey, this is DJ C Jedi, and you're listening to WHRB 95.3 FM. Make sure you say the FM. But nonetheless, yeah, that was so cool to me. And like, I don't know, like some people might see it like, oh, are they paying you, or were you like, I don't know, at least getting compensated in some way? And I was like, no, I just enjoyed the experience. The experience was the reward. Just being able to go in and do that. I love sharing music and being able to share it with the world. Like that was really dope to me.
The experience is key. That's why we're here right now, right? That's one reason I started this, is the experience. I remember one time we was at this party, though. We had crossed with an Alpha, and we were going to a party to Stroll. And they played our song to go Stroll. And you blew the whistle and ran out there. And nobody followed you and nobody got out the way.
Bro.
That's probably a low point.
I'm so glad I don't remember that. Like I completely believe
maybe I shouldn't have brought it up.
No, I don't think, like, that's funny, and like that makes perfect sense. That sounds exactly like,
I think that's a summation of some of our experiences.
Yeah, it's about like yeah.
All right, so advancing, right? We talked about Harvard. Talk about leaving Harvard and then having that name attached to your name. What has been that experience, right? Because there's a certain expectation that comes along with that. What has people's response been to you? Has it been one of shock as being a black man? Has it been one of high regard? What has been that kind of experience?
Yeah, no, that's real. I would say it's contextual. Like, excuse me. Like, I remember I got pulled over right after like a spring break. I was back in Texas.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm a broke college student. Can you let me get a warning, officer? And he was like, what school do you go to? I was like, Harvard. He was like, Howard? I was like, no, Harvard. He was like, oh, you'll be rich one day. Here you go. L.
Sheesh.
I was like, okay, bet it doesn't work that well in that situation. Yeah. Then when I guess started working, some of the senior managers in the office, as we were just, networking, they're like, oh, you'll always be the Harvard guy. That's how we'll remember you. That's your selling point. Make sure you always say that. And like, I get what they were getting at, but at the same time, I didn't love that energy. Right. Cause it's like, I'm more than a private white institution. There's more to me than that. And honestly, if you look at the typical Harvard student and look at me, like, I will not fit your expectations. Maybe if you get to know me a little bit more, it's like, oh yeah, okay, I guess he got some neurons firing in his head. But that's been a big piece for me. Like, even when it came to simple things like social media, like some people still have like Harvard grad in their bio, or even on my music account, I could like put Harvard stuff, but it's like, no, that was something I did. I graduated. I'm grateful for it. When it makes sense to bring up, maybe in an interview, when people's biases are already like thinking, oh, he's this, he's that, just black dude or whatever it may be. It's like, no, I went to Harvard and I got a degree in engineering and computer science. So let's just set the record straight there. Yeah. But in other cases, I try to leave it out, especially social circumstances. Right. People try to pigeonhole
till it comes up. Yeah.
And yeah, when it comes up, it comes up. But honestly, like, I don't even love when it comes up anymore, because it's always a energetic investment in some sense. It's never going to be like, or every once in a while, it's like, oh, cool, yeah. And then this next thing, but it's either someone feels a little threatened, or they're like, "Oh wow, you went to Harvard," or it's like, "No, I think you're kind of this or that because I'm projecting my image of what a Harvard person is onto you," and like I've made my peace with it, but I rather not lead with it because, like I said, I feel like there's more to me than an institution's name. And honestly, the society we live in, like, I don't know, people don't always like take information like that in a good way. Like they might, their ego gets triggered or all types of weird energy. I don't know if you've ever experienced that, but nonetheless, it's just like I just use it when necessary. Otherwise, just keep
me
it to the
too,
side.
me too. But unlike you, I ain't gonna lie. When I get a chance to use it, I be ready. I whisper it in there, but definitely different things that come with that title, that tag. For the most part, overall, pretty good, right? I've dealt with the same thing. Like did you say Howard? No, Howard's a great school too, but
Don't get me
Harvard,
wrong,
right.
but it's like, bro, like
Put
if a
some
white kid
respect on my name.
if a white kid said that, you wouldn't be guess checking like you said Howard, or it's like, bro, it's like relax.
Cool, man. Before we move on from Harvard, studied biomedical engineering and a minor in CS.
Yeah, bro.
What is biomedical engineering for those who are curious? Tell us a little bit about biomedical and then the CS track.
Yeah, it's just a combination of things you don't want to study if you want a social life. But clearly I didn't want a social life or great mental health. But all of that aside, biomedical engineering is basically what it sounds like. So it's like engineering, but in the context of like biological systems, whether that's making like prosthetic arms or learning how to create like certain valves or artificial, implants, things like that. It's a very wide spectrum of engineering, and it's really applicable to a lot of different disciplines as well. For me personally, I studied it because I was pre-med, and I wasn't quite sure if I wanted to go to med school, which obviously I didn't, but I didn't want to pigeonhole myself where my only options were medical school or research, because I know I did not like research. And in the case of me not wanting to go to medical school, I didn't want to have to go get another degree or feel like I wasted my college education in a sense. So chose biomedical engineering because I knew it gave me that flexibility to have like a major where it could be applied to a lot of different disciplines. I could say, I don't know, in the job interview, I studied engineering in school and also CS. And that was one of the reasons I did computer science as well. One, I just enjoyed it. But two, I knew it could also be applicable to other aspects of life if I wasn't to go the med school route. And honestly, I use my minor in CS. That information that I learned in college, I've used the most since graduating college. Like, I use that daily. I've used that even in like corporate settings to save myself hours of time where I was like, this is kind of silly. I can write a script, automate this very long task, and I'll save myself like literally hours and hours of work just by learning how to automate something. So it's been valuable.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So you studied biomedical engineering, left Harvard, went and worked for a company doing consulting. Consulting is a cool thing, very popular, I would say, at Harvard. I remember a lot of people doing the case studies in the fall. I was one who tried that, but quickly found out that wasn't for me. Pivoted and focused on some other things because the time y'all were putting in the case studies wasn't for me. But talk a little bit about the preparation, but also the world of consulting.
So preparation wise, like it really depends what company you're applying for. Back then it was mostly like a case and a behavioral interview, which basically means we're going to ask you some questions to see how you react in certain situations, and also hear about your experience thus far of like leadership or just how you work on teams, those type of behavioral assessments. And then the case part of it is more so like a business case that they present. They're like, hey, this company has these numbers for their revenue, or they're trying to break into this market. Tell me how big this market is and how they can make their revenue increase, or something along those lines. And the whole idea is, if you've done your case prep, you should have a mental model of what that company can and cannot do, and what they should do given the information the case study provided. So maybe it's like they're trying to increase their revenue. It's like, oh, okay, well, in my mental model, well, there are some ways in which you can increase revenue. I don't know, expand into a new market, or maybe you're trying to just increase profit. So now you can look at cutting costs in some areas, like things like that. So nonetheless, and that's really more so like a interview to just see how you think and understand that you can frame problems in a cohesive way, and then break it down where you can explain your trains of thought, and explain solutions where they're easily digestible and they, have some type of logical backing. So overall, like it was a cool experience. Taught me a lot about business. Do I use it on my actual job? No. It's more so about, like I said, consulting is a very diverse field. Like my company, we have like a strategy department, we have a technology department, we have like a customer experience / marketing department. So it really depends on where you want to get in, what type of work you want to do. And honestly, yeah, that's one of the things that attracted me to consulting, because I knew I could try like a lot of different hats on, basically like test out different careers and positions, while they all like kind of point in a similar direction towards building a skill set, advancing, and just figuring out this thing of life, especially in the capitalistic system. So yeah,
definitely. So enjoying consulting?
I enjoy it. I'm grateful for it. Like, given like how I guess our workforce has progressed over time, and some of the stories I've heard from other friends or peers, or even my mom, like I'm blessed. And do I think there's certain things I would want to improve upon, or things I want to grow into in terms of my career? Absolutely. But with where I'm at right now, I'm very grateful, and I think it's important. I appreciate that, as opposed to always finding the downside. So
for someone who may be listening and like maybe curious into getting into consulting, what is kind of I know there's no cookie cutter path, but what is a way that they could introduce themselves to that world or get involved in that?
Yeah, I would say first, check with your network. If you know someone who's in consulting, speak with them. That's what I did. One of my boys, we met during a scholarship program. He's the one who told me about consulting. I was like, what's that? I'm about to be a doctor, dude. And he's like, dude, you go to one of the greatest schools that they check for. You're blind. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess I'll go to the career fair and talk to him. And that's where it started. And yeah, few years later, I'm working at a consulting firm, his consulting firm, actually. It's funny. So I would say, yeah, just start where you can start. You don't have to feel overwhelmed by it. Like if you're currently in college, they're probably coming to your school for career fairs. If they're not, there's other programs and routes you can take, such as MLT. That was one. It's called Management Leadership for Tomorrow. I think that's what it stands for. Anyway, it's like a program.
Fact check, y'all. Fact check.
Man, Google MLT college program. It'll come up. But basically, it helps students from underrepresented backgrounds or minorities, whatever, get into these corporate spaces with preparation in terms of like the interviewing process, actually speaking to the companies, When I was in there, I think they still do this. They have these conferences where you can actually go and meet representatives of the various companies. So yeah, someone from my company was at one of those conferences, and I was able to speak with them, network, so on and so forth. So yeah, I would say just start where you can start and go from there.
From what I hear, consulting is pretty cool. So if you're interested, check it out. Beyond the professional sphere, right, where you make your bread and butter, music has always been a big part of your life. We talked about you being in a band.
Mm-hmm.
When we were at Harvard, we did a little thing called Spread Love, where we shoot a music video. You play the guitar, I sing on, I think it was Thursdays. But, you know, since graduating, you've kind of delved more into your music. You've even released a couple EPs. Talk to us a little bit about your music journey and the work that you put out there.
Yeah, for sure. So
EPs, all that.
As I said, music has always been one of the pillars of my life. It was football, academics, and music. And after college, I was no longer playing football, retired from that. Don't need any more damage to my body. And academics was over as well. Like, I still like to learn, but for the most part, like, it wasn't taking up a majority of my life. So music was finally something I could dive into a little bit more. And it kind of happened in a serendipitous way. I was just new to Atlanta, had moved here maybe like a few months before, but some of my boys from high school had also moved here at the same time to pursue music, and we're all on the football team together, so we're decently close. I didn't know this at the time. I didn't even know they were moving here, but I just found out through one of my friends. She had like introduced me to one of her friends who moved here, and I was just hanging out with him, and he was telling me, yeah, my roommates are so and so. I was like, wait, what? They're here? So long story short, went hung out with everybody. We were just hanging out on New Year's Eve really one time, and one of my friends, he had a guitar, and he was just like, you know, trying to cook up a beat or whatever. And he was like, you play guitar, right, bro? And I was like, yeah, I used to play a little bit here and there. So picked it up and just started, you know, playing some little tunes or whatever, so he could record and make trap beats and just all of that on top of it. And honestly, it was such a fun experience. Like,
yeah,
I remember thinking, this is New Year's Eve, people could be out, you know, partying, drinking, doing all this and the other. And I was just like, nah, there's nowhere else I really want to be right now. Like, I'm vibed out, just playing guitar and hanging with friends. And that's when it really started for me. Like, maybe I should, you know, invest some more time into this now that I have the opportunity to. So long story short, by me being around them and they actively pursuing music, that kind of put me on this fast track to understanding everything, because I would just hang out with them because they were my only friends here at the time, and I was just learning everything from them, like how they were producing, how they were playing different instruments, and that's where it transitioned from just being a band kid to more of like a producer, like session musician type. Then one of my boys, he had hit me up maybe like a year later. He was like, hey bro, you produce music, right? And I was like, yeah. And I like produced some stuff at that time for like my girlfriend at the time, and then some other stuff with friends. And then he was like, well bro, I'm a rap, and I want you to produce it for me. And I was like, it's quarantine, I'm bored. So I'm like, sure, why not? I didn't even know you rap, bro. Came over, or then I recorded him, made some beats. It was a cool time. But that was my first time doing any of that. My point is, like, I kind of just fell into it because, yeah, the opportunity came up. He asked me to do it, and I kind of learned by necessity. And once I knew how to record, knew how to produce, and he was like, oh, well, I don't really want to pay nobody to mix it, so you think you can mix it? And mixing is basically like audio editing, which is like way more complicated than it needs to be. but it is what it is. Like when I learned it was such a thing, I was so tight, but it makes so much sense. Basically, mixing is why SoundCloud rappers sound like SoundCloud rappers a lot of times, and then you can see like someone in the studio, like one of your favorite rappers, going like, and then when you actually hear this song, it's like, oh no, it's like, dang, how did they do that?
Yeah,
mixing. So long story short, I learned how to mix, and that was like really one of the last elements. I could produce, could play instruments, I could record, I could mix. Last thing was just like, are you gonna put your voice up to the microphone and say something?
Yeah.
And at the moment, I didn't really want to, or I kind of wanted to. I had much to talk about. But the girl I was dating at the time, she randomly peaced out on me. Then quarantine hit. Long story short, I was sad. I had, people be like, they go through some stuff and they put it into the music, and I was like, man, I don't know what that is. But I found out what that was very, very soon. So that was my inspiration to kind of just, I don't know, really, really dive in. And it wasn't from this place of really trying. It was kind of crazy. I remember the first song I made where I finally felt like, oh, I think I might have done something. Because there have been so many moments where you're like, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to write a song. Or you try to rap and you try A plus B equals C. And it's like, nah, bro. I just remember I played a guitar loop. And then I walked up to the microphone and just pressed record. I was like, I'm going to just speak. Whatever comes out, comes out. And I freestyled the song. And I listened back to it. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah.
What song was that?
It was the first song I released. It was called like, dang. Yeah. Yeah, it has a black album cover. It's a cool song. I like it. Oh, Guitar Piece Freestyle. There it goes.
Okay.
Guitar Piece Freestyle. That's what I called it, because it was me playing my guitar. It was a freestyle, and I felt peaceful while doing it. So, yeah, that was the first one. Then, yeah, I kind of just took it from there. Kept leaning into it, cultivating it, seeing where I could take it. And that's kind of just been the path I've been on as of late. Yeah. It's been dope.
So tell us what the EPs are, where we can find them.
So the first EP is called Metamorphosis on all streaming platforms.
Fire.
And it was the first thing I ever released where I was actually like, this is me entering this space of music as an artist. I was still trying to find my sound, find out what I want to talk about. Like if you listen to it, like there's different types of styles and vibes on it, but each one felt right to me in that moment. And I like it'll always be my first EP and like my baby to me. So
hey, no lie, that one's my jam for sure. I love that one. That one has such a perfect summer vibe. We had just moved out to Cali at the time, so I used to love listening to that one in Cali, windows down, enjoying just the vibe and the music. So
appreciate you, bro. Then the second one's called The Healing. That's when I more so grew into my sound. I released it like 6 months after, but it was way more personal. It was more so reflecting like healing is a process. You just don't, reach a point and you're like, I'm healed or I'm perfect. Life is a journey. You'll always be growing. You'll always be, going through challenges, ups and downs. And that one was my way of putting that in a form that felt closer to the sound I wanted to cultivate. Also on all streaming platforms. And lastly, the one I just released like a month or two ago is called The Darkness, and it was more so like it was supposed to be more so of an imperfect project, kind of just releasing stuff to not get in this rut of, oh, it has to be perfect or oh, it has to be this. And a lot of the songs in there were more personal as well. It's called The Darkness because it was supposed to reflect a dark time that I was going through in life, whether it's just like relationships, a lot of things are going on in my personal life, but it was to just channel that into a space and let other people hear it so that maybe they could resonate with similar things they're going through and know they're not alone, or find, different elements of their own experience in it. And that's kind of like the whole purpose I want to achieve with music, like helping other people feel seen, feel loved, feel inspired to be vulnerable, inspired to, yeah, just live the way they want to live and do what they want to do, and know that like it's okay to feel tough emotions. You're not alone. It's the human experience. So.
Yeah. I love that. I personally need to go back and listen to The Healing, and I didn't even know about The Darkness. So I'm looking forward to hearing that one as well. For me personally, I'm truly inspired by you releasing the music, man, because I thought it was such a dope thing. I know you wrote it, produced it, mixed it, did all the work for it, and then put it out, and it was a dope project. And so that was inspiring for me personally. And if you haven't checked out the music, I encourage you to go check it out as well. Beyond the music, you know, beyond consulting, what are you looking forward to in your future? What are you aspiring to in the future?
That's a good question, because the point in life I'm in right now, I've really been thinking about how I best want to be intentional with my energy and my time, and also be intentional with just enjoying what's before me, because being like ambitious people like ourselves, Harvard, whatever, it's like you'll always be looking for the next goalpost. You'll always be looking for the next trophy, or, oh, I got this salary, now I gotta get this salary, or I got this property, now I gotta get this property. And it's like, I think there's something very special about like leaning into the moment you're in and fully feeling it for what it is, as opposed to always having your eyes set on what's next. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with goals, but in my experience as of late, I've realized when I'm able to be fully present and at peace and grateful with what this moment contains, everything that comes out of that space is amplified. Like, I'm able to work faster, more efficiently. I'm able to have better relationships, because I'm not just thinking about, oh, where this is going or what can this person do for me. It's more so like, I'm here with you, I'm listening to you, I'm grateful for even us being here having this conversation. I feel like that's powerful. But yeah, in the future, like, I'm just saying, like, I want love to be my compass. I don't want it to be more so about self-gratification, but more so like, how can I help? Like, if I have people around me who I love, who I care for, who can experience or benefit from something I've experienced, how can I pour into them? And how can I pour into the people coming in the generation before me? Like, we're in our mid to late 20s getting there. So it's like, how can we start intentionally lifting as we climb? Because like, I wouldn't be where I was at or where I'm at right now if it wasn't for the people who poured into me. And we get into this mentality of, oh, I got to get to this point before I can pour back. And it's like, no, like, I've been driving home, like, whether I'm listening to the radio, listening to an audiobook, or just have like a 10-15 minute phone call with some dude in college. And that time for me, more so, is going to be spent not doing much, but for him, because I took it to share some experience, share some wisdom I learned. Now it could transform his whole life at this moment of time he's in, because he doesn't have to go and make the same mistakes that I made or suffer through the things I suffered through without having any type of guidance and stuff like that. So I just think that's powerful. Like, sometimes we get so caught up in, oh, I can't do this or I can't do that. Like, have boundaries, but like, if you're just walking to work or commuting and you set up like a 15-minute mentorship call once a week with someone who needs it, that can go a long way for someone else, and not do, like, it's not really asking much of you. You're just answering some very basic questions to you, which are basic, but to a younger you will have been everything. Because I remember being in those moments like, you know, like, dang, man, if I could only, and it's like, you can be that for someone. So yeah.
I think that's powerful, how you focus the future on really channeling that energy to other people and pouring into others. And so that's admirable. As we close out, man, I want to give you your kudos, give you your flowers. let you know I'm grateful for your brotherhood. I'm proud of you for the things that you're doing, that you continue to do. And so thank you for sitting down to talk with me, man. Anything you want to say or add before we get off?
Hey, man. I'm grateful for this experience. I'm grateful for this platform. I'm proud of you for, saying I have this vision and this intention of making a podcast and capturing people's experiences and sharing it with the world. And now we're here and we're doing it, and that's powerful. Yeah. And to anyone watching this, like, that process I just laid out, it's very simple, but it's very powerful. Like, you have a vision, and then you can either sit on it or you can put some energy behind it, and things will start to go. Like, you might not know everything at the start. Like, we spent a good amount of time setting up these cameras and microphones, but eventually we got it. And like, there's power in action. I know that sounds like very cliche, but it's like when they say just take the first step, yeah, like, because that first step, if you just keep taking it in each succeeding moment, eventually you're gonna get somewhere. Like, I don't know, I'm not trying to go off on a tangent at the end, but it's like, even with piano, like, I've always wanted to learn how to play the piano, and over the last year, like, I tapped in. Like, at first I was like, no, I'm 20, I'm 25, 26, it's too late for me. I can't do it, it's too late, bro. Right. And then I read a quote, it's like, the only difference between you starting now or never starting, it's like, you just gonna look back 5 years in the future and be like, dang, I never learned how to play piano. Versus if you just started, like, you could be nasty on the keys. I won't lie to you, I've only been practicing about a year and I'm content with where I'm at. So, and my bar for contentment is pretty high. So I'm just saying, for everyone out there, like, if you want to do something, I mean, just walk out on faith into action. That would be my advice, and appreciate things as they come. Yeah.
Walk out faith, put into action. That's biblical.
Thanks.
Faith without works is dead. Appreciate you, brother. Thank you again for your time. We'll catch you next time.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for joining the I'm Just Curious project. I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and I hope it leaves you inspired to live curious.